Denise, thank you so much for coming and having conversation with me, because that's what it is. It's going to be conversation, and we're going to just like think about different ideas, sit with them for a minute, talk about them, pull them apart about pertaining to the virus, and but then like everything else going on in the world, like the shifting going on in the world.
I am so glad you called and asked me to talk, because there's so many ideas going through my head on what's going on.
Yeah.
And there are very few people who really want to talk about this on the level that you and I can get to.
Yeah. Well, and I'm always, you ask people, be like, well, will you look at it from this light? And then they'll kind of be like, I haven't looked at it from this light, but what do you do all day? Like, that's what you're thinking about. Like, I'm thinking about getting Clorox wipes. And I'm like, well, let's think about the Amazon burning for a second. And they're like, Clorox wipes, Tara, toilet paper.
Yep. Yeah. So, are you a very grounded person? Do you take care of like really basic things easily?
Basic things. I'm going to
Like day-to-day structure, sort of like, I know how to brush my teeth. I know when to do my hair. I know what time to feed the kids. I know how to do things. Or is that a struggle to kind of get to those events? Because I know that there are people in different levels of organizational approaches to life.
So I can get to those things, like the teeth and the hair and the kids eat. But then afterwards, my mother-in-law is like the most beautiful person at it. Like, she's like the person that cooks dinner and like wipes up after she, you know what I mean? That's not me. I'm like, what do you want to eat? And they're like, we want to eat pizza for 3 meals. And I'm like, let's do this.
Yeah.
But instead, let's go play and do this or do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I asked is that, you and I've done this before. I have my little multi-dimensional tool, right? Which is like, there's all these, and it's just beautiful because there's all these different intelligences, right, that we have. And one of mine is that I'm really, really grounded in this Virgo energy. So like, I have this day-to-day stuff that I just chomp through, like I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. However, the other part of me is floating around up here going, so while I'm like making dinner, I'm going, well, what do you think about the Amazon? Like, I can do both of those at the same time. And I don't know very many people. Either I have to come down and do this with somebody, or I go up here with somebody, but to be able to just sort of stay in my grounded spot and float the way I normally do is hard to match with other people.
Well, and you think it's a balance too, because like my husband, for instance, we're building a greenhouse right now. Well, we just finished it. And he's like the type, if you give him a task, it hurts him to break from the task until it's finished.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'll do a piece of the task, and then I'm going to go do the wash, and then I'm going to go jump on the trampoline with the kids, and then I'm going to come back.
Right.
And while thinking about the Amazon and thinking about my mom's birthday in 3 years, or, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just, and if you break him from the task, you can tell there's like physical pain. Like, he's like, oh, God, I have to finish.
You gave me a task. I got to do a task.
Mm-hmm.
I have this girlfriend who knows the Chinese zodiacs really well. And she talks about the oxes. Like, you give them a task and they just like go right straight at it. And then you try to talk to them and they're like, you told me to plow the field. What do you mean? Take a break. And they don't know how to do it until the field's plowed, right? They don't know how to do anything else. And I think that's kind of funny, because that's really not anything.
That makes sense.
I don't do that at all. No. I'm not linear like that. No, I'm zigzaggy, but I have a little bit of a tether in linear, which keeps me from being way out there.
I'm pretty zigzaggy. I'm very zigzaggy.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's launch into this. Do you want to like talk about things that we've seen or ideas? How do you want to roll with it?
Well, let's start with this concept that our nation and our world is going into various levels of shutdown. And you know, I, I want to say that, and I can say this with you because this has been waiting to come out. Like I've known for like 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. Something's going to change if we're going from this Pisces era into the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius, right? It's going to be super cool, love and dance and peace and war and all, or peace and happiness, right? No more wars, nothing. How are we going to get there? It's like, how's that going to happen? And so when I really started playing with it, I realized that Pisces is like structure. You build buildings, you build foundations, you build things on top of them, you make things and you solidify it and you remodel it and you revamp it and you build it till it's like calcified. But if we're going to Aquarius, which is like easygoing, adaptive for the people, we have to break that down somehow. And
Yeah.
I had no idea. So part of me has been terrified on the inside, like, what's it going to take to break something down?
Yeah.
Really break it down. And so, there's the end of the worlders, there's the catastrophes, there's all these articles about, Seattle's ready for a big tsunami. And I'm like, oh my God, please no, And then this little virus, and I'm not saying little like to be mean it, but like this invisible virus comes in. And next thing you know, everything, every form of structure we've ever known is shut down like that in a week.
Yeah.
Nothing
Worldwide.
works.
That's what kills me is that, we're sitting here doing this and I'm like, oh, wait, there's people in Israel that are doing this too. And that blows my mind whatsoever. Except did you see the map? And like, there's like small areas in the Amazon that are like completely unaffected. Like they're like unaffected.
So is
And
India. So is Mexico.
yeah.
Unaffected. So then that's like, I've been pondering this. Why? Is it the level of population and how many people have access to high technology? Is it the spicy food that they eat that keeps their viral system? I mean, like, there's been so many thoughts. What's keeping these huge populations from even having any remote contact with this virus, not affecting their population at all? And then what's causing this huge terror? Because we're really looking at, I was listening to David Wilcock day before yesterday, and his projections are that this is a 1 to 1.5% of the total population on the earth, period. And that's a huge number, yes, but compared to what they're presenting it as, it's really relatively small. In fact, that's about the same size as what the flu usually does on an annual basis, depending on how the seasons go or how the years go. And the flu in our country's gone up and down, and as high as 60,000 deaths a year.
Yeah. And these people aren't, I mean, I can't say everybody, but like with these huge populations with a lot of poverty or just not being they're not getting the media that we are.
No.
They're not doing that.
No, they're not reading the news or watching the news on their phone all day long about this closure, that closure. Oh my God, I better go stock up. They're not in a panic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So part of me wonders, is this manufactured?
Yeah.
You and I could go into that rabbit hole, which is, we know that this is a man-made virus, where it came from, how it's been spreading, what the contagions are. We can go through that, or we can go through, is this a response to that article that you and I were reading?
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because I'm not like a big conspiracy theory thing, but that feels off. And let's talk about that. So yeah, Denise sent me a YouTube video, and it was, and I can put the link in the show notes. And it was, is the coronavirus linked to 5G? And it is a doctor who's been studying this. Mm-hmm. And it's only a 10-minute video. And I mean, he's pretty concise, right? Like, that the electrification that happened in 1917, there was the Spanish flu that happened
Yep.
at the same
Yep.
time, right?
Mhm.
And so the world's electrifying finally. Woo, we got electricity. And then the Spanish flu kicks in because what his thought was maybe that the human body just wasn't ready for wasn't expecting the electrification and the electromagnetic fields being started
Right.
up. And now we have 5G coming in, and it's everywhere. And I think that it did start in China.
From what I understand, the first major location globally that went online with full-on 5G was Wuhan.
Yeah.
in China.
Okay. So, ooh. And so
That's
that,
that's what Joshua Coleman said in the art in the video. You know,
yeah.
he said, so where was the first place? And the audience said Wuhan. He said, right. And I was like, oh. And that's what I was thinking. I got to get this thing out there.
Right. So the whole thing was like and you might be better explaining this than I, but then when the cells are stressed, that's when they start releasing toxins and creating a virus. And go ahead, you take over, because now I feel like I'm going to start slipping
Boy,
up.
this is funny because I'm not a
No.
biology, nothing. So, but from what I understand is that when a cell gets stressed, it starts to morph and starts to slough off garbage. And when that garbage gets into the system, the body gets, has to sort of adapt and get it out. It's sort of when the toilet backs up, or
Yeah.
when there's too many toxins in the body goes into fever to try to burn them off and to try to run through it. And his theory is that as the human energy system gets bombarded with the next level of high electronic or electrical surges, that the cells go into a reaction that some cells are capable of adapting and some cells that are weak are not. And so he's saying this isn't even contagious, that this is based on the individual cell or the individual body system's reaction to high levels of electronics going online, which would make sense why Washington's at the epicenter of it, because we've got, out in Silicon Valley, we're like one of the major, we've got naval up here, we've got Air Force, we've got Microsoft, we've got we've got all of the software planners here.
And then also too, you got to think how long lately everyone is suffering from high anxiety right now. You know what I mean? It's everywhere. Yes. Like in the schools, everyone's on anxiety meds, right? So the body is already stressing, right? Stressing. We add this electric component or on top of, and like, how much stress can we take on our bodies? And then I took that little YouTube video and started, researching, asking other people. So we're going to walk into woo-woo land now, right?
Go for it.
Already, I'm walking in. So entities and thought manifestations, they use the electromagnetic currents to move.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more we put out there, the more the panic, the more the thought manifestations occur, right?
Yes.
Not also saying, I hate to say dark entities, but you have them coming in through this. I know on my end over here, having a heavily empathic child he's getting slammed every now and again, like slammed. And it's because we have all these electromagnetic fields, and it's not because of just that, but it makes these children beacons. It makes really bright light people beacons, and they come in and they need to feed, and they need to take that energy. So
yes.
That's what I've been toying with lately.
That's a really interesting idea, because I agree with you. Mm-hmm. that electromagnetic waves carry more than we know, and that they impact everything. Because as empaths, if we can pick up and read those, which
Yeah.
is what we really do. We're just sensitives and empaths read energy flows. Sort of
Yeah.
like, some people can understand languages, some people can see structural cause and effects. It's almost as if the invisible ley lines of a pattern of
Yeah.
energy that, when mom does that, that she's got some anxiety or some anger in her body, and you can feel the wave coming this way. And then you can watch in the family dynamics or in a community the waves of human emotions and energy going back and forth. It's carried through that energy line, which is the same as electronics,
Right.
right? Or
Yeah.
electrical surges. So it makes sense that anything can travel on that, whether it's fear, whether it's terror, whether it's negative thoughts, whether it's entities, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Because one person I talked to who had the coronavirus said that I was breathing 1 minute, and then next thing you know, it felt like something gripped me on my throat that wasn't mine. It wasn't like my body went, oh, Steffi knows, I think I'm getting sick. It was like something just hit her throat and her chest, and she said it wasn't mine, and I couldn't throw it off, and it took me down. It felt like I had pressure on my chest. I couldn't breathe. 3 days of 103 temperature. Her body was fighting it, resisting it. And then when she finally did get out of it and get better, there's still this like lingering something on her body that she's like, we have to get this off. We have to figure out how to get this out of my system, because it felt like an invasion, not from the inside out. It felt like from the outside in. That's interesting.
That is very interesting, because even when I do, I mean, you know this, I mean, I would think, is that I know when I do my meditations, or when it's specific, when I do my meditations and stuff like that, I'm talking to possibly like spirits or Mary or whatever, is oftentimes I feel fingers on my face. And I know I'm not the only one that happens to. I know people who have like lost family members or whatever, and they're like, I feel like sometimes like my mother's hand on my face.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, you can get that sensation from the outside, and people are gonna look at it in a different way, and that's fine. It's just kind of like a thought,
It depends to me on how interactive you are with the world that you live in. Are you in your body thinking it's me against that world out there, and I don't know what it means or how to interact with it? Or as we start to play with it more, which is, I'm really all a part of this, and there's cause and effect. And when I think about someone, I can feel their touch, or I can even have somebody come in and let me know that their presence is here.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes a partnership with everything that you're interacting with. So if we're in this partnership and we're experiencing this magnificent change, because it can't be anything other than magnificent. We have never, ever seen our financials go into this. Our education systems are shut down. Our hospitals our medical systems are showing us that they're ineffective. They can't service us, and that the services we've paid for can't even be covered, right? Then we have the way that we make money, the way our relationships are entwined. Every single piece of this is moving somehow, and we're like, no, you can't move all of these at once. If you're in partnership with your world and it moves and you're ready, then you adapt and you change with it. If you are inside this solid bubble and you think that it's you against the world and it changes out there, it's going to cause more anxiety, more stress, because things move out there, and I have to choose to react to that, or I have to deal with what happens out there. So when we're in that sort of partnership, then of course we're gonna feel the presence of somebody else. We're gonna feel the changes in our culture. We're gonna see that there's something else going on, and we sort of ride it
Yeah.
Kind of like anyone who's a surfer would know, you picture
Yeah.
waves and
Yeah.
you move with the ocean. Or, the more you relax in water, the easier it is to survive. The more afraid you get, or to be realistic, the more tired you get, especially if
Yeah.
you're in a drowning situation. But the more you can relax, the less and remove the fear out of your body, the more you can adapt and float with it. So if this coronavirus if there's electronic surges, if we have negative entities on there, what do we do with that?
Mm-hmm.
Do we
Yeah.
get overwhelmed and go, I can't deal, it's too much? Or
Yeah.
do you go, well, that was interesting. Now I'm noticing that there's some negative stuff on those energy fields.
Mm-hmm.
And there's higher energy and there's anxiety all over the place right
Mm-hmm.
now. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
here's where I'm going to go back to what we just talked about, which is
Okay.
if we're shifting from Pisces into Aquarius, Pisces is structure, institutions. Aquarius is air. It's electrical connection. It's the way we connect through systems that are energetic.
Well, that's interesting.
I know. It's fascinating when we start to think that now we're separating out of what we could solidly hold on to how we feel and adapt with energy around us and start to live for the next 2,500, 30,000 years in the energy of air, which is Aquarius.
Interesting. I didn't
So
know
I wonder if our bodies are sort of going through a huge adaptation.
You know what else too I think is interesting is I'm bringing the Amazon back in, is that we are suffering this, the coronavirus we're suffering in our lungs and our breathing. And we
Mhm.
just had that huge fire in the Amazon that no one spoke about.
No one's covering it.
No one's covering it. That makes absolutely no sense. And the same thing with the pipelines, right? And the water, and like we're creatures of water, but we're destroying the lungs of the earth, right? So, and stressing that, and like look at us suffering, like we're connected
Of course we are.
more than we know. And this is where social media kind of like everybody's like boo-hoo social media, but this is our opportunity to be able to relay each information to one another without the media being a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what are you seeing over there? Or people are just posting, videos of, well, I'm seeing this over here. Well, that's interesting because I'm seeing this over here, you know?
Well, that's the beauty of social media, is that I am very selective about what I'm willing to see. I know if I want to go through the US political system or the gloom and doomers, what stations to go to. That's really clear. However, if I want to find out what the alternative seers are seeing, I go to Instagram, I go to Facebook, I go through my social media, my YouTube sites, and I watch what other people are saying who have their head up and they're seeing and they're observing what I'm observing. And then we're exchanging information underneath the surface of all of this multi-news, fear-based organization systems communications. So to me, it feels like I'm dancing around underneath it and going, so can't be as scary as they're making it out to be. And I can see systems that are thriving even in shutdowns. Like the videos that went viral of all of the Italians over and over again, throwing their windows open and singing and playing music to each other in their condos and apartments across the streets from each other. It's like,
I've been crying for days over those things. That I think it's called the Good Movement is one that I'm following.
There's so many.
Oh, you know what? It's kind of interesting is, so my childhood, I actually had like a very, like, I shouldn't, because I was grew up mostly in the 80s and the 90s. And by that time, childhood had kind of been like taken away as it kind of is now. However, I feel like I got saved in some way. And I was actually given this like idyllic childhood in a small town where people knew each other, and like we had ponies and we were allowed to be free. But like I noticed that like other kids in school that wasn't happening. So it was like right at this transition. So I got a taste and of this sweetness of the freedom and the
Yes.
community. So I know what it looks like, but I do realize that not this is not a reality for many people's lives.
Mhm.
This what's happening here, I haven't seen it in so long. Even though we're, people are 6 feet apart, it's like happening again. Like I have the goosebumps even feeling it now. Like I'm
Yep.
starting to see it again. I see
Yes.
the kids have access to electronics. How many children are outside right now? How many people are walking? How many people are sitting in the chairs on their front lawn that they have there
It's
to like look,
beautiful.
you
It's
know?
beautiful. Yes.
I've never like I was almost, even now I'm always like talking about it before the virus, and I'm always like missing that time of my life because I don't see it and I don't feel it anywhere, and I'm trying to create it with my own children. And it it when you homeschool, we do have access to other children, but there's something about having children around all the time, the kids in the schools and
Yep.
whatever. And though they're not able to play with those kids, just the kids milling around on their bikes and driving down the road and playing with their dogs, and you know you see parent like I am so happy about watching these parents that got thrown into homeschooling
Hmm.
even for 2 weeks, right? And with these schedules, and it's not a blaming to the school system or the teachers, because they don't know what they're getting into either, right? So they have these schedules and these parents are like, this is impossible to do these schedules. It's so impossible to do 7.5 hours
I
of
send them to
school.
school, so you put them on a schedule because I don't know how to do that, or I don't want to, or
Yeah,
I don't have time.
right.
Especially
And
if I'm work, I've my responsibility is to work out from home, and I'm supposed to do this with my kids. How am I supposed to do that?
mm-hmm. And
Mm.
but then like the beauty of it is like these parents are like getting creative. They're like, I'm gonna teach my kid how to beatbox today, and I'm going to pull out the archery set that we bought 5 years ago, and we're gonna do archery. I had a friend who like pulled out Titanic, and she watched Titanic with her kid. She's like, how many questions we asked, and how much they're just they're they're in it, and it makes me
Mhm.
so happy to watch.
Yeah. Well, one of the parts about the structures falling was the simplest thing. Like, let's just say that that you like you live here on Bainbridge. You get up in the morning, you have your, you know, fruit, your smoothie drink or whatever, right? Or you don't even do that. You stop, you pick up your bagel or your drink, you get your coffee on the ferry, you sit on the ferry, you go to work, you walk up, you're there by 7, you work until 5:30, you get on the ferry, you come back, you have dinner, you've got homework with your kids, you have your systems, right? And your kids, they take the bus at this time, and everyone's in these locked systems that they've been in for years, especially if you're a consistent employee, especially if you have children in school. There's these locked in structures, and then all of a sudden when they're pulled out, we don't have the safety of those structures. It's almost like, oh, I have to get to know my husband or my wife or my partner in a different way. I'm here with them 8 hours a day now, whereas before I had tons of people at work I could go talk to, and maybe I just had to make it through 2 or 3 hours at night or a weekend. And then the weekends are packed full of all sorts of activities, especially when you have young kids. All of that's gone.
Yeah.
And so the time that's opened up, I love that you brought this up. It feels to me, if someone says, what does it look like out there right now? And I said, it looks like a Sunday afternoon where no one has anything to do. I've never seen so many walkers and
Yeah.
so many grandparents with little kids on bikes, and they're all walking the appropriate distances away, but they're literally, everyone is outside in their yards, on the trampolines, playing. And then they're talking and they're reading books. And I had this post from this mom who's like, hey, homeschoolers, please give me your top tips on how to manage time with your kids, or what topics they like to do, or how to take a history topic and explore it. You know, they're asking for
Yeah.
support, and I'm thinking, this is how community works when we have
Yeah.
time to break those schedules. So
Yeah.
that structure has been removed, so we have to try something new. All of us, every single one of us has to let go of whether it's your Starbucks at 7:15 on the way to work,
Yeah.
um, or your conversations about the sports events that day, or the constant classes and work schedules that you have. You're free of all of that now
Hmm.
on some level, because you get to choose.
I was finding it super interesting too, is I was talking to a friend of mine, and she did home birth. I did not do home birth, but I was also in another place at that time. She's like, do you know how many people have been contacting me, or that I've been noticing they're going to move to home birth because they're worried about being in the hospital?
Yep.
And I mean, that's like not my world, but I was like, even just the idea of like changing your perspective, because what you're doing is like you're concentrating more on the health of your child or your family,
Yes.
like how many, so then like, people are contacting other people about how to make a garden. How many gardens are going to get made in this coronavirus?
That's the best part, is garden season, and they're projecting that this thing could go through the summer.
Yeah.
This isn't a 2-week thing. This is months. It's going to take months to rebuild what structure we've taken away. So
Mm-hmm.
gardens are going to be the most beautiful thing to plant.
Yep.
You've got the entire, and especially in the northern regions, it's not even really time to break ground yet. But in this, the further south we go, it's time to start getting that going. And that to me is my favorite part, is the gardens that are starting to show up. Yes.
Like I sit here, I'm like, how many gardens are going to be made? How many songs are finally going to get written? How many books are going to get started? How many relationships with your children? Because I can't tell you how many people will say to me with homeschooling, like, I can't do it, which is fine. But I'm jealous of how much time you're getting with your children.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's the time is always there. And now you're given like the pass. If you needed a pass, here's your pass, because the world has shut down. The world is not moving without you now. The world is closed, as that meme says. Like
Mm-hmm.
nothing is moving without you,
Yeah.
and you have the time.
Well, and the other part is, no one's coming to bail us out.
Nope,
It isn't
nobody.
like there is a parent or a leader, or anyone who we for years have, for some of us it's been decades, and for others it's been a couple of decades. It's like no one's coming to say, hey, this is what you have to do. And so we have to make it all up, and we're going to make some discoveries, which is, I'm actually really good at working at the house. I'm going to start looking for a job now where I work from the house, because my time with my kids, or my time for me here, and the way that I individualize it, works so much better for me. We're going to have a hard time I'm going to project about a third of the kids back into public school.
You know what, Denise? I was thinking the same thing, because I'm going by my own experience, right? Is when I got, the life kicked me out of mainstream, that mainstream race, because I got kicked out. I was kicking and screaming.
Uh-huh.
And it took me out, and I had a solid temper tantrum, anxiety attack, depression, everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started, looking at my kid and realizing how much of that was getting left on him. And then I started repair. But anyway, once I stepped out and I started to see and be present, like I couldn't walk back in anymore. And I mean, in a big way, like I would start going back to barbecues, and like all of a sudden I'd be like, I can't talk to you about your kitchen countertops anymore. And I don't
Yes.
want to be here. And I don't, I don't need to do this. And I don't want to take your advice on this anymore. And I think when they get a taste of the presence, this is different than summer break. This isn't summer break for kids. This is different. If the whole feeling is different.
This isn't a vacation where for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, we get to check out and let the kids run rampant. This is life. And all of a sudden, we get to determine how we want to shape it.
Mhm.
Now, one thing that I've seen constantly in the therapeutic industry where, an adolescent hits a wall in school, whether it's parents struggling at home, anxiety, school failure, and we've talked about this, where they go and they spend anywhere from 6 months, mostly more like 9 months to 12 months in a therapeutic boarding situation where they're learning how to go to school again, how they learn separate from the pressures of home, separate from the bullying that may have happened at school or whatever those dynamics are. One thing that is constant is in the home care plan is that when parents are flexible about how their kid wants to learn and let their kid tell them the way that they learned to fall back in love with learning, if they can match that, they have success. And so what I'm seeing because I used to do a lot of transitioning those families home and trying to get the parents, don't put him back in the same school that he came from, or don't put her into the same scenario that caused all this pain. When they go on to online one-on-one supported education systems, the parents are like, I don't know what happened. He's so smart. He's getting straight A's. He loves his life. He got a job. She's now trying out for the sports team at school, but she's doing all of her lessons at home because she can do them at her own pace. And so we're seeing that anxiety and agitation that somehow is related to the environment in the schools calming down, and learning is now becoming more natural.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking that kids are going to fall in love with wanting to learn at their own pace rather than they will miss the social,
Yeah.
especially those
I agree.
extroverts who liked recess time. Like, I lived for recess and after school sports. I had to endure classes one at a time when I was in school. But the rest of it was all about who am I going to meet in between the classes and what am I going to do after school?
Yeah. I was the same way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could care less. The teachers were just not, I was never going to connect to the material unless it was a good teacher, unless it was self-paced, unless there was discussion and individual attention. And then I was just as happy as could be.
Even if we look on the smallest scale too, the parents are getting a taste of what the teachers are having to do. And as much as I know the education system needs reworked, these teachers are getting, they can't do the amount of work that is required. It's unfair. It is so unfair. So now, in the best way possible, the parents are getting to see, and I hope that there are more parents now going to go in the pot and say, like, this is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how we're treating, not even how we're treating it, this all needs to change. This isn't working.
Well, and what if we start some of these grassroots movements, which is, uh, we did okay, and during this virus quarantine, and what if I realized I want to teach more than I ever thought I wanted to, and I want to give back. So what if we're going to see some beginnings of magnet schools and collaborative homeschooling groups and all of these things where we get to find out what we want to do too, because yes, teachers have been overworked and been paid babysitters doing an enormous amount of work for our children. And if we can carry some of that load, or we can spread it out, it's not so heavy on the education system, and we can own some of that ourselves. This is where we see, like, I remember there was a point in time where a group of us were relocated to Texas. because Texas was doing all these corporate headquarters incentives, and dating myself, it was in the early 90s. And we came from other parts of the world and other parts of the United States. And so we had international school kids, and we had kids from New York and from all over the place, right, in these Texas schools. And they didn't do art or recess because they were at that time in the 90s, Texas was giving funding based on test results. So they were just cranking on those kids all day long to get their test results up or their test scores up. So what we did is we started garage art. So as soon as school was out, one woman turned her garage into an art studio, and we had kids and mothers and dads and anyone who wanted to participate coming in and doing art projects with the kids because they weren't getting it at school. The kids liked that more than going to school. So we compensated and we shifted. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that now, which is how do we customize the way we want to participate in the world, not just follow the systems that used to be in place.
Yep. And
that's the best part of this.
And creation is saving our butts right now.
Yeah.
As in, we're stuck at home, and all of a sudden everyone has there's like this weight that they're finally able to create the thing and get that they want, because there's nothing else for them to do other than the people that have to work from home. And I'm not taking you out of the equation, but people are creating, and it's saving them. And it's fun. It's even we'll go back to the Italians, right? Like, look at all they're creating, and they're in their apartments. So there's some of them are in their apartments. They're like taking lines to string espresso to each other. They're like, the human brain just it lives off creation.
Right. And creation can't happen when the brain is stuffed full of too much nonsensical, day-to-day stuff. And so, we as employees, we as parents, we as leaders want creativity to surface, but we don't understand that we stifle it by the systems that are in place all the time. There's no room for creativity. Nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
I always loved summer vacation with my children when they were little, because I wanted them to get really good and bored.
Yeah.
Because when they were bored, they picked up books that they would have never read. They decided to call a friend or go hang out with someone that they didn't like at school, but then they found new friendships. They found out that they liked woodworking because they decided to build a fort. I mean, like, there were some things that came out of it that were the best part of the summer. Each summer was when they got good and bored. But
Yep.
it was my job to fill their days with things to do. That's their job.
And the thing is that you can be a part of it, because I'm bored. Well, okay. Like, I've even just when we're bored, right? Like, I don't have to be busy with them, but like, get that piece of paper. What do you want to do with it? Well, how about you draw a shape, and then I draw a shape, and then we see what comes up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can be a part of it.
Totally.
Just be the questions. You know what I mean? Like, okay. My dad we call him like MacGyver. Like, that was what he lives for. Like, you could be like, I have this paper clip and this zip tie. What are we going to do with it? And he'd be like, I'm pretty sure I can build a house with that. And nothing makes you feel more alive than in that space, I think.
To me, that's the beauty of this, is that we're releasing some old structure pieces that we got sort of calcified and stuck and stagnant in. Mm-hmm. And now we get to see what new leaders emerge within ourselves, within our family systems, within our community, within our local governments, and our national governments, and in the whole entire world, who is stepping forward and saying, hey, we got this.
Yeah.
And what I'm noticing is that it's really coming down to those people who are confidently playing through this, rather than tensing up and getting stuck in fear. It's almost like the more we can release the fear out of our systems and start to play with that extra time, play with the freedoms, and see what wants to happen, you're right. The creativity starts to come up. The individuation starts to come through. So there's so much possibility here.
I know. And we're
Now,
gonna get tested on going back to it too. That's
oh, it's going to
gonna
be
get
hard.
it's gonna get tested.
Yep.
And
Now,
go
I
ahead.
want to, sorry, we were off sync on that one. Sorry.
No, go for it.
I just want to go to the Saturn Pluto conjunction in Capricorn that happened on January 12th. And I'm not, I'm a historian, right? But I'm not an astrologist, but I just kept watching all of these astrologers going, oh my God, it's getting closer. It's getting closer. It's like, what is this? And so when Saturn and Pluto started to line up and they started to come down into this landing where they were going to land in the month of Capricorn, under the sign of Capricorn. That's all it really means, is that they started to line up and they touched each other. They got so close, and then they were like 1 degree apart, and then they stayed, and then they're lifting off. That happened on January 12th was when they hit the closest part. Now, that conjunction in Capricorn hasn't happened for 500 years. The last time it happened, Martin Luther nailed the theses against the Catholic Church up on the doors of the church, and sort of, kind of like one of those things like, well, and then that happened, and nothing really happened right away. And then there was this rebellion within the church, which then turned into this political rebellion between England and Italy and the Pope, and which turned into religious reformation, which turned into the Renaissance. Because when they started to pull apart the constriction of Catholicism in its ruling over everything, they started to free up some energy. And what happened was there was the religious rebellion, the Reformation, and right at the heels of the Reformation was the Renaissance, where scientists and reason and philosophy and art started to become known again. And everything changed for 200 years. We started to create and allow the artistry to lead our cultures. That happened 500 years ago. Knowing that we were coming into this, I'm like, oh shit, what's this going to look like? What's going to happen? And so it touches down. I use the touching down, it aligns, and there's a key point, and then it starts to take off, and I'm like, so what's changing? What's changing? Nothing so far, nothing. And all of a sudden this virus comes in and knocks the structure down on everything. And I go, this is cool. And then you just brought up how creativity starts to flourish.
Well, this is super interesting to me because I knew nothing about this whatsoever. But
I'm watching your face.
I know, because I love that high of like the expansion of my brain. But I didn't know anything about this. And so Eve goes to a homeschool co-op. However, between January and February, my children drew more pictures of the planets. And I remember a solid week where all they were talking about was Saturn and Pluto, and why, anything, and why would Pluto be taken as a planet? And do you know this and this about Saturn? And I was like, what is up with you guys? And I mean, on my own end, I'm like, something's up in the world, but I didn't think anything more of it. But I had said something to my husband, and I like gathered all the papers, right? Like, how many times can you draw the solar system?
Yeah.
And then they were buying planets, like, squishy planets, and then the kids at school. So I had to like help at school one day, and then the same thing was happening at school. All the kids were like, let's draw planets. Let's draw planets. And so that's what blows my mind a bit, because I'm always like, wow. I love seeing when the kids come into it, and you got to watch your kids. They sense stuff not way before, but like they sense it coming.
Mm-hmm. Well, to me, it feels like there is this invisible little cord or ribbon. It's kind of like everything lined up, and then we just went, and then it's like freedom is starting from this point forward. And just to witness what happens differently on a day-to-day, and the coincidences of, well, my kids were talking about planets the whole time this was going on, and I didn't even know anything about astrology.
Mm-mm. I did not. Astrology is like not usually the place that I go. However, every time I end up visiting the astrology world, I'm like, oh, yes, I get it.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Um, the other thing I want to talk about is nature
Mhm.
and how, you know how being in the woo-woo world is that everybody wants to smack you with the science. Like, where's the science in this? Where's the this and the that, right? I'm really interested to see how how it, science is a part of this, and now that we have gotten removed, right? Removed-ish, removed, and we are seeing how quickly the world is healing with just us kind of not being here. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, on like day one, we saw healing, right?
Mhm.
I pray to God, like they're going to have all this research and science from this happening, right? How quickly we can kill ourselves out and how fast the world will heal. It will shake us off, and it'll be healed real quick, especially since we've been so disconnected for
Right.
so long, whereas animals have remained connected. So they know, they have that intuitive, that connection where it's like, time to move here, time to do this, time to do that. Where, humans are like, must get my 401k up, must, no matter if, the temperature is 120 degrees out. And, you know what, like, even look at this, with the dolphins in the Venice Canal,
I
right?
was just going to bring up the dolphins in the Venice Canal. How is that possible?
So
They
quickly, so quickly.
like instantly they're like, oh my God, the boat's disappeared. We can swim in here again.
Yeah. And I mean, the pollution and everything like that, like, and it's starting to clear. And I I mean, we're going to start seeing that. And there's people, I'm sure, walking, you know, and they're experiencing this. And how do you take it back away once you've seen it?
My hope is that you can't take it away. Once it's almost like, we can stay in a really tight, and whether it's a shell or in a space of being confined, and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter because we're cramming more and more into it. And it got to the point, in my perspective, over the last 20 years, where we were so wound so tight that anything could trigger us,
Yeah.
anything at any given time. Now, when that kind of cracks open, and think of a bird that's finally pecked its way out of the shell. It's like, oh, you want me to go back in that shell? You don't understand. I'm like 3 times the size I was. That shell doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can go back.
No.
And anyone who thinks we're going to open it up and bring it right back into the same system that was there before is not understanding how the laws of nature are that you give freedom and space and light and air to something, it grows.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Whether it's water heals, trees grow, human bodies grow, we expand. Now, the thing that I want to go back to with this astrology was that in between those 2 planets was Jupiter. Jupiter sort of came up from the side and rode right down in the middle and was like right there with all of them. Jupiter's the planet of expansion. It's the one who's going to exaggerate and make it bigger so that we can feel it. So it makes sense that we've been sort of, from the very beginning, hey, we're going to give you a little bit of freedom. Grow. Go for it. See what you create. And then find out what matters and don't go back
Yeah.
to what didn't work. Don't pick that back up.
Yeah.
Or pick it up and watch what happens with your body. If your whole body gets nauseous or your anxiety goes up, it's telling you don't do it.
Yeah.
But if you put that cap back on your head and you crunch your shoulders back in and you go in, you can anticipate that your body's going to reject you really fast, because it's like, you can't do this to me again.
Mm-mm.
Disease, ailments, those things are going to start again, which is what happens when we are stuck. So something has to free us. So all of this system it's not just one thing. Again, going to this this beautiful little imagery we have here. There's all these things that are happening at the same time that are all interconnected to keep us focused on future growth rather than holding what used to work in place. I love this time.
I know, it's so messed up, isn't it? I was sitting there and I was like, when it all started happening, and because I know how much I grew in my quote unquote quarantine, because Dominic wasn't leaving the house, and if we did leave the house, it was terrible. So I had my own self quarantine, and I know how much I grew and turned inward and looked at myself and freed myself of stuff. So I know how important it is, but now I get to like see it on the world scale. Like I'm like, whoa, guess we're all doing a lot of inner work for a while. Like I was never expecting that. Never.
And but look what you did with it. You took something that I love the idea that you said, I had a little temper tantrum, of course, and I like freaked out because that wasn't my choice. And then as I owned it and started to sort of sink into it, everything started to change.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to have our little temper tantrums, which is, I live in a house that, oh shit, I can't afford anymore.
Yep.
Well, maybe you never really could afford it. It was putting too much stress on you.
Yeah.
What if I'm in a marriage that I like being at work because I don't want to come home to my partner every day? As a matter of fact, I think of things to do Monday through Friday, all day Saturday and all day Sunday, so I'm not home.
Yep. Well, maybe my partner sucks. And then when we take it out and all
Oh,
that stuff comes
I
out, then you're
remember.
like, oh, there you are. And I mean, you can't go back in after that. I hate to say it, people, like, you can't, you want to. I tried. It didn't work.
Yep.
It was painful.
Yep.
And it's so liberating out here. Like it really is.
Well, our lungs have some space to breathe. We have the ability to expand. Let's be really clear. There is fear. There is, we're watching our stocks go down. We're wondering how we're going to make our payments. We don't know how much longer we can do this. And our kids may not be going back to school at all this school year because we may not reopen the schools at all until the summer, if we do it all, right? Those are all those things like, oh no. Or you can say, okay, let's put them on the table and figure out, what do we do with this?
Mm-hmm.
What are our best options right now? And then keep expanding, keep playing, like let go. The hardest thing is when we want to grow and change, just like the seed with the flower, or the little chick out of the egg, they have to let that go over here so that they can go grow. So there might be things that we have to let go of. There will be, in order to step forward. Our job is to know what to let go of.
Mm-hmm.
And if you drag it, you put it on your back, and you keep trying to put little eggshell pieces all over, maybe I'll just make a fake egg so it feels better. It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. It's going to keep falling apart.
Yeah.
I need also too, what's really interesting is, I'm not trying to make this political in the least, is I really feel like the government, obviously, because nobody else knows what to do. But it's so interesting because now we're getting, at least I don't know how you are. The help is coming from the people. Mm-hmm. The support is coming from the people.
Yes.
Like, it's like sitting there and it's like, why are the small businesses supporting the children that are starving, that don't have enough food unless they're in school? And the florists, instead of getting rid of dumping their flowers, there's a florist in Philadelphia, my friend posted, they were going to run out of flowers. So she made the most gorgeous, intense arrangements and decorated Rittenhouse Square in Philadelphia. She's like, oh, it's going to go anyway. And people are giving their food, farmers are giving their food, and it's sitting there, and it's like, they're going to realize who helped them, and caring for their elderly. Holy crap. This love of the elderly, and like finally looking at them, like we're not turning our face away from them. That is that makes me cry every time.
Well, that's all we have is our community. And if we don't take care of each other, we now know that no one's going to take care of us. So we have to take care of ourselves. And then if we have more than we need, or we have space and time and we can help, we're offering it. And we're seeing the same thing here. We have an entire one little main street here on the island, right? With all these restaurants, and it's the small little startup restaurants that are the ones that are offering the free food. They're the ones who are saying, please come if you need rice bowls, if your children need lunches, please come and get lunches here. Because we also know that kids who are in school that are protected sometimes from really horrific things.
Yes.
Being sent home isn't necessarily a great thing.
No.
So, how do we come up with ways to support other families, to support children? I love the idea that our community is what's going to save all of this, our grassroots community.
Mm-hmm. Where was I going? Where there was a big thought in my head too, and of course it just went away. But they're taking care. Where am I going with this? Go ahead. You go.
Me go. And the other part of this is that whatever this virus is really, really going after bodies that haven't been functioning really well on a daily basis anyway. I mean, the ones that are struggling the most have some sort of, whether they've been lifelong smokers, or they've got disease, or they've been struggling and their cells are so weak already. So this is where we have to have a lot of compassion for the fact that this disease is, or this virus, or this fear is coming in on someone who's already, sort of holding, I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like, it's almost as if that's why they're saying that this really disease is targeted for 60 and overs.
Yeah.
Because that's where the body starts to break down if it hasn't been well cared for.
Yep.
So we're seeing people like taking care of their bodies all of a sudden, getting good. They're getting a lot of water. They're getting healthy foods in their systems, because it's like, that's how you're going to fight this, is you have to build your cells up.
Yep. I remember where I was going to go.
Okay.
Where our communities are helping each other, right?
Uh-huh.
And then we have these people that are worried about, we're out of ammunition. There's no where the looting is going to start. I was sitting there, I was talking to my husband. I said, we've seen this before in history, over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And we're watching it now, where we are able to mass, like worldwide, look at each other and help each other. Because really worldwide we can, through social media. Mm-hmm. The looting and everything doesn't need to happen.
It hasn't started yet. I mean, that's the most amazing thing. It didn't start the first day or the second. And how many days, depending on what state you're in, how many days have you been in shutdown and quarantine?
Yep. It doesn't have to happen if we help each other. It doesn't. No. Because, like, for instance, like, I'm really good at, my husband's a mushroom grower. I'm like, please give the mushrooms to, if they're not getting bought, give them away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the same thing with the other people, the florists, the restaurants. I mean, there's restaurants here. We're going to have to toss the food anyway. So let's give it away. And the people will remember who took care of them.
Right.
And the looting never has to start happening. We've seen it. This is ridiculous if we have to go, in my mind, I'm like, this is ridiculous if we have to do this again, when we have seen it through history always.
Well, let's pay attention then to the things that don't happen that used to.
Yes.
How are we changing? How are we releasing? We're not looting. We're not rioting in the streets. We're not doing random shootings right now.
Yeah.
What else can we notice?
I mean, this was kind of interesting. Like somebody wrote this some beautiful thing that, like, the gardeners and the farmers, like, they are forgotten, and now they're not being forgotten. And the people that have trade work, and they're overlooked.
Yeah.
And the medical professionals and so many things. Like we're not missing the people anymore versus nothing against celebrities or pro athletes. But it's like they've been removed from us.
It's, to me, it's been glorious because, to have professional sports canceled for a while means that the TV has been freed up, or the schedules have been freed up. I mean, in theaters are closed, and yes, I understand the impact on the industries that those are. I'm not belittling that. I'm just noticing that they freed up time in such an enormous way, and these individuals involved in these industries now get to decide, what else can I do with my time and my resources? What else can I do since this isn't available to me?
They're giving stuff away. Like you can get free classes at Ivy League schools, cyberly, and free curriculums and free opera watching and free. And it was funny, this is where the highly intuitive child thing comes in. Before coronavirus had not really hit, it just was something that was, like a little blurb you hear going around the world. And I was at dinner or lunch with my son, and he's watching, looking around, and he's just going, I tell people all the time, if everything could just be free, everybody would just stop being so unhappy. And it sounds ridiculous and little, but like he really is always on this soapbox about everything being free. And this is not socialism or anything like that. It's just like the long game. He's looking at the long game.
Yeah.
Because we're getting a taste of it.
We get a taste of what does freedom really feel like,
Mm-hmm. and
the appreciation of being able to access something right now, and then turn around in 3 months, start charging $29.99, for this again. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna look for a free one. We get to choose now what we support after it's been taken off the table.
Mm-hmm.
We get to choose everything we do from this point forward. We get to choose what we do with our money. We get to choose what food we put in our body. We get to choose what we do with our time and energy. We get to choose how we make our money. We get to choose how we spend time with our children, how we spend time with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had that freedom ever. I mean, it started ramping up in the post-World War and just like went out of control, out of control, out of control. And then now we're like in this freedom.
Yep.
It's lovely. And it isn't going to come without a cost. Freedom comes with leaving chains, leaving structures, leaving systems behind. Freedom comes at a cost. It always does. So the cost, we can either grieve the cost, or we can focus on what we lost, or we can look at what we can create moving forward. It's our choice. And in history, in every country, in every part of the world that has had to make that choice, it does come at a cost. You have to leave the things behind that no longer serve you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've known about that for the last 10 years. We're going to have to, cut off and leave behind the things that no longer serve us. What does that mean? Well, in some cases, it's friends, it's family members, it's jobs, it's houses, it's the dream of what I thought we should be, where we should be right now. It could be a lot of different things. It could be our faith, our practice, our religious practice. It could be our marriages. It could be anything. But we know now that we get to make that choice,
Mm-hmm.
and that we can't go back. Nature won't let us go back. Once you've expanded and breathed and started to feel freedom, it's like, wait, you want me to go back into that box?
Yep. Our cells are forever changed at this point.
Yes.
We are forever changed. And you think of that, and you're like, after a week.
1 week, and our cells took on a level of light that they haven't had access to in millennia.
And once you light, like you and I both know, once you've created more light within yourself, like you don't go back.
Mm-mm.
You don't go back. it's too agonizing.
You've done such a beautiful job of being creative at who you are, what you do, and how you go forward. And you've created this podcast, and you've created your family environment, and it's just like, it's so inspiring.
You have created, your videos right now are on point. There are
I'm having so much fun with them.
I love them. I love them so much. It is like such an expansion. And when you release them, this is what, like beauty of connection is. Like, I've had so many people that have started, they talk to me about you, but I know for me personally is when I start watching them, it's like what I need to hear in that moment. And because I'll put messages and stuff like, oh my God, thank you. I needed to hear that. Or, oh, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I changed it. I went from like, I'm just so done being a parent coach. I think I tried to squeeze that one about 2 years longer than it ever should have been. And I'm still working with parents, but I'm working with parents as they're starting to explore empathic kids, sensitivity within themselves. And then I've started to go, you know what? No, it isn't about parent-child relationship only. It's about the way that we embrace all of this awareness on a metaphysical level. And we can call it woo, we can call it whatever we want, but there's so many, like, what do you do when you start to realize that energy works, and that you're here in a body, and that there's all these systems and intelligences working? How do you start to pay attention to those and still do life? And when you can live on a metaphysical level, you're harnessing different forms of intelligences at the same time. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's where I'm going. I'm going to start playing with this and figuring out what the heck does that mean when you're in all the elements, embracing them at the same time.
It's asking questions too. It's like, I know for me, I just needed the validation to like be able to ask the questions and be like, is this a coincidence? Or how does that, it's been wonderful watching your videos. And I hope, even like in this conversation, right? Like I needed somebody who I can be like, Denise, what do you think about that? Somebody I could go back and forth, because I can have these questions and people, if they listen, those questions will naturally be triggered within them if they want to explore them. Like we were saying with the coronavirus 5G YouTube, right? You sent that to me. I said, oh, I don't like, the title was kind of like, I'm not into the title. And I was like, 10 minutes. Denise sent it to me though. Cause like Denise, I'm definitely on team Denise. So I'll listen. She's got good taste. So I'm watching it, and like my husband's watching me watch it, and my eyes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm like, this makes so much sense and resonates within me. And I have all these questions. And then you say to me, well, it got tagged as fake news. And I still posted it, even though it was supposedly fake news, because it's asking questions within me. Well, why aren't we asking that question?
Yes.
Even if there are things in the research wrong, why aren't we asking that question? Why aren't we looking in those places?
Well, and there's an entire industry or interest area of people who are energetically aware, who are working with Reiki, bowl healing, sound healing, hands-on, apothecary work. Everybody, we all know that big burst of electric energy. We don't put our phones next to our heads. I still have this old, oh my God, I have to find it, this thing, so that I can plug in my phone to a cord, so I can keep my phone away from my body, because if my phone's next to my body, then all of the electronics, all the electrical surging in that is affecting my cells. But so that's something that those of us who work with energy have known for a long time, which is we are ultra sensitive to electrical surges. the fact that 5G has been taking over, which is we're now going to be able to do electrical surges on this planet. The more towers we get, and the more the more we can build into major metropolitan areas, we can shut down entire systems by just pulsing out electrical surges.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that our bodies, this guy's saying for the very first time, hey, your cells don't do well with that electrical surgery, is like, yay, somebody put it out there, pass it on. And it gets shut down by Facebook.
And well, and it's just, so in this time of us all being shut down, I hope, if I can ask anything, it's like, this is the time for people to start questioning things. That doesn't mean that you don't believe in them. That means like, this feels right, this feels wrong. Like, I hope that there's, the more you turn inward and the more connected you become with yourself, the louder that yes and no response is.
Yes.
It's kind of like, for those of you that like fallen in love, like at first sight, it's like, that was your bodies and being like, yes, there it is. That's the path we're going on. There it is. So I hope that all gets turned on for some people.
Wow. So why?
Yeah.
What I'm continue to go to is whatever captures your attention, pay attention to it. And then it isn't about the answers, it's about the questions. Are you curious? Do you want to know? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll say, my favorite thing, and Terry, you do this so beautifully, is put 2 or 3 things on the table that are totally random, that don't have any connection, and go, wow, let's talk about them. What are they doing here together? And these are the things that are going on right now. Mm-hmm. And so let's play with those, which is, we could be completely off, or we could have our finger on the thread of something, and it doesn't really matter. The idea is that we're curious women who are exchanging thoughts and information in a safe environment where we're not judging each other and we're not shutting each other down. And look at all that's come out of this process of exploring together and playing with something that we never even would have crossed our minds before that. Now we've taken some ideas and we've just asked questions and expanded it. We don't know what the answers are. Those are going to change on an hourly basis.
Yeah.
The best part of science is that science is updated constantly with new validation and new research.
Yep.
So we can hold to science and say, if it's not true, if it's not science, it's like, well, then who are the science changers? Because I want to be one of those.
Yep.
I want to be the ones who say, that was what we knew then, but now 10 years later, this is what we know now. 10 years later, this is what we know now. I want to know what's out here and play with that.
Yep.
And you have this magnificent questioning mind that does that too. Yay!
Some people do not think it's so magnificent.
Well, of course not. I can tell you there are people in my life that don't think my mind is anything other than a real pain.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. I was sitting here asking you to ask a question. If the questions bother you,
why?
Even if they're not true or whatever, they're questions, so it doesn't matter true or false. Maybe ask yourself why this question is bothering me.
It's the best thing to say, which is,
but then it's like, will you ask that question?
If we ask someone a question or if we make a statement, and any time that we have a little bit of a,
yeah,
oh, I hate it when she does it. She's so wrong. No,
yeah.
That's like the red flag that goes ding, 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 ding. You just got your next project. Go figure out why your body tensed up, why your jaw gripped, why you hate it when someone says that, because that's your work.
Yep.
And if we just stay in our own snow globe and we pay attention to those reactions when they come up from outside of the world, and we go in and get curious. I wonder why every time someone says the word Chiron to me, I just want to come unglued. It's like, okay, better go find that out.
Yep. I'll give an example for myself, is that just because of religion in my own, is like when I hear like Christian-based word, like saying Jesus or faith, though I actually really, believe in faith and stuff like that, that creates a trigger sensation for me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
Yes.
it's something that I'm like, I think about all the time, because, you know, there is part of my brain that's like, you can calm down about that. That is not a big deal. But there's still like a trigger response.
Well, and we're human. We're going to have trigger responses. It isn't right or wrong or good or bad. It's just information. Like there's a little bit of a zing there. So
Yep.
how do I neutralize the zing?
Yep.
So I had the same thing. It was like, please do not. I have a member of my family who likes to quote scripture at me, and I go, I'm sorry, I don't speak scripture. Well, you're not a faith-based woman. Oh, yeah, well, let's wait a minute on that one. and then trying to translate anytime that I hear languaging that I don't like or don't want to, how can I switch it into something that I can hear, and then let the trigger soften?
Yep.
Because that's their way, that's not my way. But they're not bad because they use it. I just have a reaction to it, which is mine, which is, oh yeah, I can tell you all my history with that, both in this life and previous lifetimes, with all of that languaging.
Yeah.
However, my job is to neutralize myself on that so that I understand why it's there.
Yep.
And if everybody did that, boy, wouldn't it be a
Ooh.
wonderful world?
Oh. All right. I'm going to end things here because we'll be here for 5 hours knowing us.
It's true. We have proven we can talk.
We do it all the time. But thank you so much for doing this conversation with me.
Oh, it's been such a treat. Such a treat.
Maybe I'm like sitting here like in my mind, I'm like, maybe I should just I should have these conversations more often, because it's just so interviews. I love interviews and I will continue to do interviews, but it's different than a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think like I was just telling Denise, is that my favorite parts of podcasts are the parts before I turn on the interview and after. It's the conversation, you know, like, what's going on with you? What's going on with me? How do you feel about that? You know, it's having the conversations you can't have, you know, in the schoolyard.
And conversation is a dying art. The art, you know, there's the idea that we can just relax and not get into a battle, just throw things around and entertain ourselves with a conversation, is something that's probably the most beautiful way to spend time for me.
Mm-hmm. I love you, Denise.
Love
Thank
you
you
too.
for coming.
Thank you, Tara.